This is When Jeff Comes Home, Chapter 21. I was sprawled on the living room couch, staring into space when Charlie and Sherry came in for lunch. Sherry greeted me casually and didn't mention what had happened in the gym. "I'll be in the kitchen, Charlie," she said, retreating tactfully. "Okay," Charlie said, her eyes on me. "Jeff, have lunch with us." I shook my head no, but smiled at her. "Well, you want to play a video game or something later? We could all take turns." "Nah, I'm fine. Go have your lunch." Charlie nodded but stayed where she was, hovering at the edge of the room. "What?" I said, trying to hold on to my patience. "I talked to Vin," she said abruptly, coming a few steps forward. I sat up, staring at her. "You talked to him about me?" After a brief hesitation, she nodded. Furious with her, I took a deep breath. "Don't do that, Charlie. Don't talk to him about me. I mean it." "It wasn't like that," she said, backing up a little. "I just asked if he wanted to come over for lunch today. He said he couldn't." I nodded, sinking back into the couch. "But Jeff, he said he'd like to come some other time. He looked really sad, like he—" "I don't want to talk about this," I warned her. She nodded unhappily. "Hey," I said, knowing I owed her something. "What you did today took guts." Charlie looked at me. "You stood by me when all that stuff was going on. Not everyone could have done that. Vin couldn't at first. So, thanks." She smiled slowly, brilliantly, her eyes lighting up. "I liked doing it, Jeff." "Okay then," I said awkwardly. Charlie came forward and kissed me on the cheek, leaving to join Sherry in the kitchen. I sank back into the couch, thinking about my next hurdle, Dad. I spent the rest of the afternoon anticipating Dad's arrival, creating and discarding the arguments I would use to convince him I could not go back to school. Charlie returned home around 3:30, Connie and Brian an hour after that. I barely noticed, cocooned in my room, waiting. I was too close to Ray and the life he had pressed upon me to fit comfortably into the world of my peers. The point seemed so obvious now. Why hadn't Dad been able to see it? Worse, why hadn't I fought him on the issue, walking instead into a situation I knew I was not prepared to face? I knew why, of course. Dad had conspired along with me. "I'm fine," I had told him so many times, and he had chosen to go along with that, too afraid, too disgusted to help me face the truth. Connie announced dinner at 6 o'clock. I went downstairs only to avoid an explanation of why I could not eat, but she seemed as preoccupied as I was, glancing up at every noise outside, obviously waiting for Dad. When I finally asked what was keeping him, Connie was tight-lipped, saying only that he had been delayed by a problem at work. By 10 o'clock, I lay rigid on my bed, furious. He was the one pushing school for me, and then he wasn't even around to see how I had done. I should have been relieved, for I still didn't know what I was going to say to him. But as the hours passed, I had only grown more tense. I wanted to tell Dad now, have the argument now that I would not be returning to school. I turned on my side, under the covers, dressed for bed in a t-shirt and sweatpants, miles away from sleep. Ray spoke to me. "Love you." And Vin. "You were making it with that guy." And the voices from school. "Fag." "You miss getting it regular?" I flipped over again, angry with myself, reaching up to snap the light on. Maybe I could borrow a book from Charlie. "How did everything go today?" Dad asked quietly, standing in the hallway just outside my bedroom. I was speechless, choked with anger and shame. He came a few steps into the room, looking as though he already knew the answer. "Not so good," I said. Dad nodded. I don't think I want to go back. I'm sorry." I waited tensely for his questions, for the lecture he would be sure to give me on perseverance. Dad nodded again, running a hand through his hair. I've had some second thoughts myself about you going back to that school. It's tough here, where everyone knows you. We'll talk it over tomorrow, all right? There's nothing to talk over, I said, relieved and disappointed, trying to bait him into a reaction. Come on, Dad, care. Tell me not to give up. Well, he said, not tonight anyway. I'll see you tomorrow. Dad walked out of my room looking defeated. I hated him. I hated myself. Chapter 22. The man I came to know as Ray held the knife against my neck as he pushed my face down into the dark blue carpeting of the van. Kneeling on the backs of my thighs, he pulled one of the arms back, then the other, and cuffed my hands together. I raised my head to scream, but before I could open my mouth, the man dove forward and threw his full weight on top of me. I felt the knife against my cheek and the man's breath on my hair as he ordered me to open my mouth wide. My hand shook as he held the blade close to my eye, and I began to cry as I opened my mouth for him. Placing his knife on the carpet, so close to my head, the blade touched my nose. He pushed a soft, wadded cloth into my mouth, securing it with a knotted rag he fastened tightly around my head. The man sat back on my body, resting on my thighs again, breathing heavily. I fought for air as mucus filled my throat and tears ran across my face down into my nose. I closed my eyes to try to hold back the tears, relaxing into the man's rhythm for a moment. He must have felt the tension leave my body, for he reared back off my thighs. Instantly, my body told me to kick back at him, to use my legs against him while I still could. But I was too close to the memory of suffocating. The knife lay in front of me, so close I could smell the hot metal of the blade. What would he do if I kicked at him and missed, or struck a blow that hurt him without knocking him out? I remained passive, and he pushed my legs together, binding them tightly with something that felt like a long belt. The man crawled over me, pausing to pick up his knife, and climbed into the driver's seat. He took a deep breath, then started the van. He continued north for a while, and I allowed myself some hope. Someone at the rest stop must have seen the van and would connect it to my disappearance. It would not be hard for my family to find me. I lay flat, my head bent sharply to one side, the rough carpet scratching against my cheek. My arms and legs were beginning to fall asleep. In front of the van, the man was silent. In the front of the van, the man was silent. Suddenly, he changed lanes. So quickly the momentum rolled me off of my stomach. The handcuffs dug sharply into my back, and I tried to cry out, raising my body off my arms, falling back down on them again. Another shift, and I knew he was leaving the highway. My stomach turned over as he drove a short distance, stopped, turned left, then left again, accelerating. We were heading south now, down Interstate 5 in the opposite direction, and I thought maybe he had a change of heart, that he was taking me back to the rest stop. But he kept driving until I knew we had to be too far from that point. I cried silently, keeping my eyes tightly shut to stop the tears from choking me. I became used to the feel of the handcuffs digging into my back. It was only when the van's motion threw me off them, and the continuous pressure was relieved, that I was aware of the pain. I would have a bruise there, I knew, a good one. I felt the chafing of my wrists, too, as the skin wore away, and I pictured the marks the cuffs would leave. Maybe he'll never take them off, I realized. Maybe whatever he wants me for, he doesn't need to take them off. Maybe they'll find me like this. The tears came again, but this time I blinked them back. Stop feeling sorry for yourself, I thought. Fight, figure it out, do something. From the position I was in, I could see out the top part of the front passenger side window. We passed tall buildings and billboards and silos. At one point, we drove alongside a semi-truck, and I saw the profile of the driver inside. If I can see him, I thought, maybe he can see me. Hope flared, then died as many more miles went by without sirens, without the man noticeably changing his speed. I watched the sky begin to darken. I had to go to the bathroom bad. There was no way to ask. I wouldn't go in my pants. I had that much pride. The man shifted away quickly, changing lanes, then exiting the freeway. I rolled, landing on my stomach, and my arms and legs began to tingle, then burn, as the circulation began to return. I had to cough too, but I couldn't with the gag. I began to hack in the back of my throat. The man swore and sped up. I couldn't breathe through my mouth, and I couldn't take in enough air through my nose, which was still congested from the crying I had done. I began to choke, my chest heaving. I was going to die. I could feel it. He pulled off sharply into another road, tires squealing, then, almost immediately, made another quick turn. The van screeched to a stop, and the man jumped out the driver's side door. I heard him running around the van to the back panel doors. He swore again as he fumbled with the lock, then threw the doors open and pulled me out by my feet. I crashed to the ground, my head narrowly missing the back bumper. The man knelt beside me. Taking his knife, he cut through the rag around my head, then pulled the cloth out of my mouth. I heaved, trying to catch my breath. My mouth was bone dry, and I could taste fibers from the cloth all through it. I rolled to my side, coughing weakly, my head rubbing against the hard-packed dirt. "Now," he said, sounding worried, "I'm going to let your arms and legs loose, and you go ahead and cough. If you do anything else or try to run, I'll hurt you. Understand?" I nodded. Reaching into his back pocket, he unlocked the cuffs, then took the knife and cut through the belt that bound my legs. Sharp pains shot through my limbs, and I cried out, but the need to cough was greater. Raising myself to my hands and knees, I coughed deep from the gut. The man rubbed my back and made soothing sounds. A persistent tickle in my throat maddened me to the point where I couldn't concentrate on anything else. "Water, please," I choked out. He leaned forward. "What?" With all the strength I had left, I sat up a little. "Water," I said slowly. "Please." Another coughing fit hit me, and I doubled over. "Oh, sure, water," he said, making no move to get any. "How do I know you won't run? It's in the front seat of the van." "I won't," I gasped. I'll get you if you do," he warned. He moved away from me, and I heard him rustling around in the front of the van. The pressure on my bladder was unbearable. For the first time in my memory, I peed my pants, flooding my shorts, the hot urine burning against my legs. He came back with the water as I finished, my eyes closed in shame. The man said nothing, kneeling by me again and helping me sit up. He held my head back and poured water into my mouth clumsily, spilling it all over my jersey. I drank gratefully, reaching up to hold the jug to my mouth. "That's enough," he said, pulling the jug away from me and setting it just inside the back of the van. "You okay now?" I dared to look at him. The man had dark hair, pale skin, a mustache, and an unshaven face. His eyes were black and unblinking, and he took my face in, as if he was memorizing it. "I asked if you were okay," he said harshly. "I think so," I told him. He pulled the handcuffs out of his back pocket and took hold of one of my wrists. I pulled back, and he yanked me forward twice as hard. "No, please," I said, dignity forgotten in the memory of the pain, the feeling of being trapped. "You don't need to handcuff me." The man half smiled, half sneered. "Why not?" "I won't try to get away," I said quickly. "I won't run. You don't have to tie me up." The sky was overcast, the moon half hidden behind a cloud. Distant mountains ringed the flat land where we stood, and the air was heavy and the smell of fertilizer. I heard the sounds of the freeway not far off, but I could see no lights from cars or any other human source. The man and I were utterly alone. "You'd be stupid to run," he said, smiling a little. "You wouldn't last long out here without me." The man nodded to himself, looking down. His lips curled. "You wet yourself, didn't you?" The two of us were kneeling in a puddle of my urine. I could smell it suddenly, hot and sharp. "I'm sorry," I said, feeling dizzy. "I had to. I couldn't." "It's okay." he said matter-of-factly, "but this is a new van. I want to keep it clean. Let's get these clothes off you." My stomach dipped and I began to shiver. "No, that's okay. It'll dry fast. It's a warm night, so—" "Come on," he said, standing up and pulling me with him. "Let's get them off." "Look," I said desperately, "please don't do this. I won't tell anyone anything if you just leave me here. I don't know you. I don't know where I am. They'll never find you, so please just leave me here." The man smiled slowly at me. "Relax. You pissed your pants, and I want to clean you up." Maybe he's just crazy, I told myself. Shivering, I stood still as he reached for the buttons on my shorts. I tried to ignore the way his hands lingered on my hips as he eased my shorts and underwear down. "Step out of them," he ordered. "Now, your shoes and socks." I knelt to untie my shoes, taking my time about it, afraid to face him again. He kicked my hand lightly and, shocked, I almost fell, the cold metal of the van's bumper hard against my back. "Stand up," the man said, his voice husky now. I averted my eyes, but I couldn't help noticing the bulge in his jeans. "Now pull off that jersey." Still looking away from him, I obeyed, bundling the jersey in my hand. He reached into the van for the jug of water, then splashed it across my lower torso. "Dry yourself," he ordered. "Use the jersey." I complied, rubbing the sweaty material over my body and legs. He reached into the van again, pulling out a green garbage bag and handing it to me. "Put your stuff in this. All of it. Shoes, shorts, everything." Trembling uncontrollably, I did as he asked. "You got pee all over my jeans too," the man said. Smiling, he reached down and unbuttoned himself.